तो क्या क्या डिफरेंस होते हैं? 5 डिफरेंस होते हैं टोटल कि व्हाट आर ट्रांजिशन मेटल प्रॉपर्टीज दैट दे क्या क्या दे फॉर्म कलर्ड कंपाउंड्स, ठीक है।
Sir, high melting point.
हाँ, so they've got high melting points, high boiling points. और क्या होता है?
Um, electric conductivity.
नहीं, वो तो बैरियम भी मेटल है ना, वो ट्रांजिशन मेटल की खास बताओ कि हाई डेंसिटी रहे।
वेरिएबल ऑक्सीडेशन नंबर।
ठीक है, सो वेरिएबल ऑक्सीडेशन नंबर, ठीक है, चार्जेस आर वेरिएबल। वन मोर। One more is that they're very good catalysts. Okay, so remember there are 5 properties of transition metals that are unique to transition metals. They don't, I mean, they're not for other metals. So, now he's very specific. He's asking for chemical properties. So which 3 are the chemical properties? एक तो your oxidation state, variable charges, right? That's that's a chemical property. Good catalyst, that's a chemical property. The compounds are colored, that's also a chemical property, ठीक है, that the chemical compounds are the compounds that they make, they are all colored. High density and high melting boiling points, these are physical properties, ठीक है. So these are your 3 chemical properties. The next one is के ये क्या हो रहा है? I think this is decomposition के calcium carbonate, when you heat it, it decomposes, it forms a calcium oxide, ठीक है. So it's going to just hold on 1 minute, एक second. चलिए एक सेकंड. अच्छा, decomposition, we did decomposition. तो decomposition में था कि you've got ये आपके carbonates, right? Carbonates would decompose and they would form what? Calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. You just have to write the name, ठीक है? So you can just write calcium oxide and carbon dioxide, and hydroxides, they would decompose and they would form again the metal oxide and if I इसमें carbon dioxide and water gets produced. ठीक है, so these ones are they're going to produce water. मैं वो नोट साथ खोले तो ठीक है. Remember decomposition के कहाँ पे गए वो उसके नोट्स? मेटल्स, ठीक है. राइट एट द एंड वी डिड decomposition. सो उसके अंदर था कि carbonates would decompose, they would form oxide and carbon dioxide, while nitrates would decompose, they'll form oxide, NO2 and O2 gas. Group 1 nitrates decompose नहीं होते थे, तो उसमें बस एक ऑक्सीजन ही निकलता था, and they would form nitrates. Hydroxides would decompose and they'll form oxide and water molecules, ठीक है. और उसमें था कि जो रिएक्टिव कंपाउंड्स होते हैं ना, दे आर हार्डर टू डिकम्पोज, रिएक्टिव मेटल्स. For example, calcium would be very hard to decompose, but if you have copper that's unreactive, that will be easy to decompose. अच्छा, फिर वो कह रहे हैं कि what are the products formed when copper 2 nitrate is heated? ये फिर से decomposition है. तो copper 2 nitrate, copper plus 2, NO3 minus 1. So it's going to be CuNO3 twice. What it's going to form? It's going to form copper oxide, NO2 gas, and it's going to give off oxygen gas, ठीक है. तो ये सारी चीजें जो है, they're going to be formed. You can balance it, 2NO2 and oxygen कितने 6 है, so that's 1 plus 4, that's 5, so there's going to be half O2. अच्छा, but anyways, they're not looking for the equation. उसने बस कहा था what are the products formed. So you'll just write copper oxide, nitrogen dioxide, and oxygen gas. These are the products. Or complete the equation for the action of heat on sodium nitrate. मैंने कहा था group 1 nitrate जो है ना, they are very hard to decompose. वो decompose नहीं होते थे. They would form a nitrite and they will give off an oxygen gas molecule. तो बस एक ऑक्सीजन गैस मॉलिक्यूल, हाफ ऑक्सीजन गैस मॉलिक्यूल, ठीक है। तो रिमेंबर दिस कि carbonates oxide and carbon dioxide, nitrates oxide and NO2 and O2, hydroxides oxide and water, ठीक है। और ग्रुप 1 के जो नाइट्रेट्स होंगे ना, they'll be very hard to decompose, ठीक है। क्लियर है? Shazib, Mariam, is this clear?
जी
So,
सर।
I just had a small query. I
Yeah.
think I missed these classes, but we can write it as half oxygen. Is that acceptable? Like, remove
That's acceptable. I mean, the reason I'm writing half is you can get rid of the half as well. As the reason I'm writing half is that there was O2 over here.
Hmm.
So there were 3 oxygens, right? So you needed 2, you needed 1 over here. So I just wrote half. Okay, that was easier to balance. Half is acceptable. But
Okay.
if you want to get rid of half, that's you just
Then you
multiply
multiply by
all
two.
of them by 2, right? So that's it. Achha, one thing, so the half goes away. Achha,
Okay.
one thing is half is acceptable. A fraction is normally acceptable, but don't go beyond half. Just, I mean, you can use half, but don't start writing other fractions like 1/3 or 1/6. Uh, but this is not acceptable. 0.5 is not acceptable. ठीक है?
Okay. Right. Thank you so much.
अच्छा, नहीं, वैसे बताओ कि what's the difference between 1/2 and 0.5?
So then this, I'm assuming that you can simplify by kind of, you can multiply forward too, but that you can do another. Not
No,
very.
but these two are kind of exactly the same value, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The difference is a fraction is always an exact value, like 1/3, right?
Yes.
1/3 is an exact value.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you do it on your calculator, you get 0.3 and then it just goes on, okay? So the point is when you convert something into decimals, so there are infinite decimals that are going to come after it, right?
Right.
So which is why it's going to be, I mean, you will never be able to express the number properly in a decimal. So which is why 1/3 is an exact number, right?
Right.
Like even the value of pi, right? The value of pi cannot be expressed in decimals. 22/7, that's very exact. So just remember, fractions would be acceptable, decimals will not be acceptable.
Okay. Thanks so much. Thanks for the
Achha.
explanation.
But just half. Don't go beyond half. Achha, which of the metals in the list, page 5, have oxides which are reduced by carbon, right? So oxides that can be reduced by carbon, they're the ones that are going to have that are going to be lower in the reactivity series compared to carbon. So carbon would be able to take away oxygens from them. So the metals, उसने खुद ही कोई list दी हुई थी. Like if you look over here, yeah, this one. So carbon is, I think it comes over here. Carbon is more reactive than zinc, copper, and silver. So for example, if you have copper oxide, carbon is more reactive than copper oxide. So carbon is going to take away the oxygen. It's going to reduce it. So, but the top ones, they're more reactive, sodium and calcium. मतलब ये देख लो, sodium and calcium are way more reactive than carbon. So carbon will not be able to react with them or will not be able to take away oxygens from them. तो उसकी list लिख लो, zinc, copper and silver. The next one, choose from the list on which metals whose ions would react with zinc. Whose ions would react with zinc, which means zinc would be, this is copper. Zinc would be able to react with copper. Why? Because zinc is more reactive than copper. So zinc is going to lose electrons. It's going to give its electrons to copper ions. So zinc ions will get formed and copper gets reduced. Copper gains electrons. Reduce ka matlab it gains electrons. Why? Because zinc is more reactive. Zinc has a higher tendency to actually lose electrons. So it's got a higher tendency to lose electrons and it's going to give away electrons to copper. So zinc is going to reduce or react with all those ions which are less reactive than zinc. So zinc is less reactive कौन सा? It's just copper and silver. ठीक है? तो only copper and silver. ये clear है?
Yes.
Is this
जी सर।
ठीक है?
Yes, sir.
चलो ठीक है. अच्छा, अगला ये फिर वो, I think this is extraction of aluminium. Name two products formed at the anode in this electrolysis. So extraction of aluminium. Where is the extraction of aluminium that iron ke baat tha? So extraction of aluminium was you take bauxite, you purify it. It's got other impurities, other metal oxides. You dissolve it in NaOH. The amphoteric aluminum oxide will dissolve. But the other metal oxides, which are basic, are not going to dissolve in a base. So you just filter them out, right? And then you electrolyze the aluminum oxide. The aluminum ions and oxyanions you put in the anode, and you have the container, that's the cathode. Okay, what is produced at the anode? Positive electrode. So the negative ions, oxyanions, and oxyanions are going to go over there and they're going to turn into oxygen gas. And the graphite anode will start burning with oxygen gas. So they'll form carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide as well. So name two products formed at the anode. So एक तो oxygen तो बनेगा ही बनेगा, but the carbon anodes will burn and they'll produce carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide as well. ठीक है, clear है?
Yes,
और
sir.
Yes,
फिर वो
sir.
कह रहा है, all the aluminium formed comes from the alumina, not from the cryolite. Suggest two. So why the electrolyte must contain cryolite? ये हमने वो पहले किया था. Why is
Low
cryolite added?
temperature.
तो lower melting point.
Right.
अच्छा, lower melting point. So what does that